Hi, I'm the father of two young children who both were sleeping through the night by the time they were 2 months old. And so we're going to be talking about how I did that, how you can do that, and how sleeping relates to feeding, diapering, and bonding with your baby. So, we all know sleep is crucial, not just for the baby, but for the parents, and especially the mother. And so, as a father, there's a lot of things that we can do to accommodate her, especially if she's breastfeeding, because sleep affects her production quite significantly, and so we want to ensure that she's getting as much rest as possible. Now, babies, they love to nap, and they sleep a whole lot, like 18 hours a day. It's just never at the right time, it seems. And, being able to prioritize getting rest with your baby is essential for your well being and for your ability to have patience with the baby as you train them to sleep properly. Now, first and foremost, you got to have a great sleep environment for that baby. So being able to have a quiet, dark space that you can keep kind of cool, because swaddling a baby and wrapping them up sometimes can make them quite warm. So you want to have the area that they're sleeping in pretty cool, and establishing a real calming bedtime routine that you stick to. They get accustomed to these routines pretty quickly. So even though early on it may not seem like that they're responding to it, they will get adjusted to the routine if you can stick to it. Now, one of the biggest factors that we discovered in helping both of our kids get to sleep was minimizing sugar in my wife's diet. Now, a lot of babies aren't breastfed, I understand, but there are different levels of sugar in the formula too. So look around and see what you can find. But what I'm going to talk to you about is from my own experience. And with our kids, we noticed very direct correlation whenever my wife had a lot of desserts with my daughter. My daughter would be up, and we noticed very clearly she cut way back, and then my dad came to town. He brought a whole bunch of fudge. I think she got carried away, and even though Hollis was already kind of sleeping through the night, he had his worst bout of colicky symptoms that night. And as soon as we cut that out, he went right back to sleeping through the night. That may be controversial and that may be hard to do. That's just in our experience, and so we're going to leave it at that. But being able to recognize the difference between their hunger cues and having stomach pains is really vital, especially if you have a colicky baby. And simply put, if they're crying, it could mean various things like being hungry or sleepy. But if they're screaming, not if they've been left alone too long and they're frustrated screaming, but if they wake up screaming, or if they seem like they're in pain and like it's something, maybe comes and goes, well, that's a lot of times, and very specifically because the sugar, if the baby is especially not accustomed to having a lot of sugar in the breast milk, their stomach doesn't know how to process it, and it goes down in their intestines and it starts to ferment and it makes those bubbles, and they got to work them out. And there's a lot of ways that we can help them with getting those kind of bubbles out too. We'll talk about that here in just a minute whenever we get to the diapering. But the biggest thing that we did, I'll be right back. It's right here. So this, is the record that we have kept since he was born of every time he slept and ate and pooped, and early on peeing too, while we're keeping track of that, and his weights, we were able to write it down anytime he had a temperature. Invaluable. And it may seem tough and tedious to do, but once you start doing it, it's actually a hard habit to break, what we noticed with my daughter. But this allows you to see what schedule the baby forms themselves. And I mean, we keep it pretty simple. As you can see, I don't know if that's going to focus for me. I guess we can hold it further back. We write down how long the baby was fed, which breast she started on, sleep times, and poo times. It's really simple, but it's going to save you so much time and help you get rest so much sooner in the end if you keep a simple journal of this stuff. Again, it's a little bit hard to start, but you keep it right there by the changing station, and it's going to make the world of difference in your life. Now, at the changing station, if we're talking about that, you know, I think the biggest thing that I've noticed, the way that I can help my wife, is we wake up Hollis to feed him in the night. And when we do that, if my wife gets him up, and she usually does because her body is telling her that she needs to feed the baby, and so we wake him up to feed him even though he wants to keep sleeping. And if my wife goes to change him, I think he can smell the milk, and so he fusses and screams the entire time he changes the diaper because he doesn't understand why she's not feeding him. I get up and wake him up when it's time, and he doesn't do that with me. And that's the only thing we can figure, is he doesn't expect that from me. Even though I bottle feed him sometimes, perhaps I don't have the smell. You know, I hear that babies respond very, very strongly to the smells. You know, a big thing that I do whenever I'm changing him is I make sure I focus on his face. I focus on talking to him about what I'm doing while I'm doing it, and I glance down at the diaper as I'm working, but as often as I can, I'm keeping engaged with him. I take my time and use it as an opportunity to really connect with him and help him understand what I'm doing by prompting the movements and just talking to him about every step of the way. This may seem like a insignificant kind of thing, but over time, all of this language adds up, and it really is going to help them in the end become better communicators a lot quicker. Just taking every opportunity that we can. And when we're changing the diaper, you know, I don't know how often, I can't even keep track of how many pee diapers we change. I mean, 15 or 20 times a day is an opportunity to really connect with your kiddo. Now, we also keep dark and light colors and different contrasting things for him to look at around the diaper station, and that really holds his attention. It seems like he always takes his eyes and kind of wants to try and figure out what these dark spots are in his blurry vision, and that's been, I think, very helpful in keeping him distracted while we're wiping him with cold wipes and digging in his britches. Besides talking to your kid, you know, sing to them as much as you can. Now, this may seem kind of self-evident, but pick your favorite songs. It's not nursery rhymes. It's whatever songs that you can think of. It. Part of all of this bonding time is going to help them get more comfortable with you so that they can calm down whenever they get around you. I think being aware of what they're saying isn't just about recognizing whether they're hungry or tired, but also whether or not they want to be picked up or put down. Because a lot of times already I find that when I'm rocking him to sleep, he doesn't necessarily want me to keep rocking him, and when I put him down, he wants to rest. And it was the same with my daughter, and I remember what a revelation it was when I guess she wants to lay down and go to sleep. We also use our ears a lot more in the night. Now, it seems like if they're kind of looking around and they see us, then they will want us to hold them, and that's not always the best thing. So recognizing through the schedule, you know, having this available for you to see what kind of times they sleep and how much they sleep and when they're actually going to be hungry. You know, it's hard to remember these things if you try and hold it all in your head just from the last time, much less seeing a pattern emerge over the weeks and months, this early time of their lives. Just especially if they're not sleeping well and everybody's exhausted. Speaking of exhausted, a lot of times they need a little bit more exercise, I feel like, before they go to sleep. And it's easier for me to do this. It's harder for my wife. But, you know, when they're fussing and crying at me, I I feel like that it's the best thing that he can do. He doesn't do enough of it, and it helps keep that congestion clear in them anyway. So taking the opportunity to give him time to cry and even encourage it and ask him to sing me more songs and ask him to sing louder and smiling with him, believe it or not, it calms them down. I think that they being accepted, I think that when people get anxious, when they're rocking or they can't get the baby to calm down, well, that anxiety feeds into that baby's distress, and it creates this escalating kind of domino effect where the baby continues to get more and more worked up, and the parent gets more worked up because the baby won't calm down. So if you just accept it and embrace it even and encourage it. But sometimes they got bubbles or something they got to get out. So when they're fussing, I'll put him on his tummy, and I'll turn his head one way, and I'll turn his head the other way, and I'll roll him back over, and I'll put him back on his tummy, and I'll put him on his side, and I'll help him. Sometimes working his knees up underneath him, or if he's on his back, working his knees into his tummy to kind of work out any kind of bubbles, letting him push up against. Now, once you can get all of these kind of 4 ideas aligned, and I might have left some stuff out here, but I hear him kind of starting to stir on the monitor in there, and it is about time probably for me to warm up the bottle. So this channel, though, is all about helping dads spend more quality time with their kids. And there's another dad out there who's created an app who will help you find times to spend away with your kids, but it's a paid access website, and I wanted to find out more about it. So I got on there, I explored it around, I recorded the whole thing, and I have it right here. You can check that out for yourself. I better get up there to him before he gets too upset. Later, guys.